As President Trump's cruel deportation campaign aimed at removing millions of immigrants from the United States wages on, the president is making an exception for one group, white South Africans. Unlike the Trump administration's treatment of other immigrants, especially those from Latin America and our Afghan allies that he's kicking out of sometime soon, the president gave a warm welcome to dozens of white South Africans this week. He's also expediting refugee statuses for the group, which he says includes victims of racial discrimination. The move comes after his decision to freeze refugee admissions from other nations and cut off resettlement funding. So we have back with us former United States Ambassador to South Africa, Patrick Gaspar, is back with us to discuss. It's a bit mind-boggling how Donald Trump, of all the nations in the globe, all of the conflict, the famine, we have Afghanistan, where allies who worked for us, we aren't letting into the country, and they've been cleared and vetted. Yet, South Africa. You were former ambassador there. Can you talk about what he is describing as persecution?
I will. I'll say a couple of things first. When I come on shows like this, I'm trained to kind of retain my anger. It's hard to do that on this on this issue. I'm absolutely furious. There are a number of things that are going on here. One, Trump is playing to a domestic U.S. fringe political audience, which I'll talk about in a second. There's a geopolitical impact because there's an attempt to punish South Africa for the posture that is taken internationally on the war in Gaza and its claims against Israel. And Trump is very clear about the need to punish South Africa in that regard. But there's a third thing that's happening. Donald Trump is the master of distraction. And he knows that while we're having this conversation, we're not talking about the prices that are going up for average Americans in Walmart. And he loves that. So on South Africa, there's a bill that was passed by the parliament in South Africa in order to right historic wrongs in the country. In 1913 and then again in 1950, a set of laws were passed that restricted the ability of blacks in South Africa to own land. It made sure that whites that were then less than 10% of the population, now less than 8% of the population, controlled 93% of the land in South Africa in 1913, about 75% of it from the 1950s onwards. And right now, today, even though white South Africans comprise, again, less than 8% of the population, they control more than 65% of the private land that exists in the country. So a law was passed to try to make some determinations about how to better allocate resources in the country. But it's very similar to laws that were passed in this country, like under the Fifth Amendment here. We have the right of eminent domain that the nation can impose in times of national security. It's the same sort of law in South Africa. But there is no way that land is being seized from white South Africans without compensation, without due process. It's just not happening. It is a fiction from Donald Trump, from Elon Musk, and so many of their friends in the fringe right, like Tucker Carlson. So now you have a president who is overturning the long-term asylum procedures that we have here in the U.S. for people who are fleeing violence, real political violence from countries like Afghanistan, but he's throwing it open to a group of people who are political pawns right now, Afrikaners from South Africa, who may or may not feel physically threatened in some way. But if you follow the data in South Africa, whites comprise 2% of victims of murder and violent crime.
Of the crime that he's describing on these farms.
2% of the crime in the country is, targets these white farmers. It is an obscene thing to say.
Ambassador, I would pick up on something you said in response to at least that the three things that are happening here. You said one of them is that the president is playing to a domestic U.S. audience. I want to read something from Callie Holloway that she wrote in The Nation on Friday, the real reason those white South Africans are here. I'm going to quote her. To be clear, white South Africans, and this really cannot be reiterated enough, are not being persecuted. The red carpet is being rolled out for them slowly and deliberately, I might add, as a political signal. Consider it a statement of allegiance to whiteness, a full-throated declaration of where and with whom this administration's priorities lie. If you are of a certain age, you remember the anti-apartheid demonstrations that were happening all over the country, and particularly on college campuses. And to see, here we are, several decades hence, that Afrikaners are being given refugee status and being brought here to the United States. We knew exactly the signal that President Trump was sending when he did that.
Absolutely, Jonathan. You and I are old enough to have participated in those demonstrations, right? So the first time I ever went to South Africa was 1991. And I got to observe Nelson Mandela's vision for a rainbow nation. I lived 3.5 years in South Africa as ambassador, and I've seen white and black South Africans and colored South Africans working every single day towards the affirmation of that vision. I talk to my white South African friends all the time, and they think it's bizarre that this is occurring now. They can't recognize their country that's being described by Donald Trump. I will say that white supremacy has never lived in isolation. It has always and ever thus will be a global phenomena. And there is a conversation that's taking place from the United States to South Africa to Australia to in Europe with fringe neo-Nazi adjacent groups like AfriForum that are promoting this notion of a white genocide. It is really instructive to see the President of the United States who is denying the plight, the struggle of Palestinians in this moment who are under siege. It's interesting to hear him use the word genocide when he's talking about a people who represent 7% of a population, have like 70% of the land, have 65% of the senior management jobs in South Africa, and whose unemployment ratio is like, 1/20th of the unemployment ratio of blacks in South Africa. This is deliberate. It is signaling to his fringe MAGA cohort here in the U.S. And sending a wide signal to those who are neo-Nazi adjacent in other parts of the world.